show.
The J. Craig Podcast.
And we're live. thejaycraig.com.
Craig.
Jason, what is going on? I am right.
And we are
back. Let's do it.
What should we talk about?
Welcome back, everybody, to the J. Craig. I am Jay, and I am still partnerless, as Craig is still lost in the middle of the desert, wandering in the shadows of the wasteland. So until he comes back and ready to actually record with us again, we're going to keep podcasting because, after all, the podcast must go on. If you're not familiar with the J. Craig, we are a movie entertainment podcast. We focus on movies, new releases, filmmakers, filmmaking, stories, screenwriting, a whole lot of topics based upon movies and also how they're related to life and just the intermix between the two. If that sounds like what you're looking for to listen to, if that makes sense, click the subscribe button on the bottom of your right screen if you're looking at YouTube. If not, you have SoundCloud. You can follow us there. You have iTunes, Facebook, and Twitter, and that's thejaycraigpodcast.com and the J. Craig Podcast. So, folks, I am taking this opportunity to podcast about topics that Craig might not want to talk about. So I brought on a special guest that has been with us before. Now, this special guest came on for a podcast called TV Shows. Now, this podcast had a special guest, as he brought on somebody else as well. So we had a lot of people talking at the same time, and it was pretty chaotic. We had a lot of fun doing it. But this time I want to talk about something with none other than Jeff Caldwell.
How's it going, buddy?
What's happening, man? How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well.
All right.
Yes.
Well, welcome back to the J. Craig.
I'm glad to be back.
All right. And what we're going to do today is I thought we could talk about something, again, kind of like that Craig doesn't want to talk about, right? So let's do some stuff that I can get away with right now.
Wait, who's Craig?
He's my partner.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah, the J. Craig.
Yeah. Okay.
Right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, okay.
I got to do stuff that at least I can get away with right now. So what I want to talk about with you, and it's like, because I know your history in this topic, I think we'll have some fun with it. I want to talk about video games.
I do like video games.
Okay, so not just like movie adaptations, which I know we're going to touch on here, but I want to talk about the breadth of games and where they come from. Not just a history. I don't want to go through like a boring history of video games, but I want to talk about some of our favorite consoles, some of our favorite video games, how they related to movies, and what they've become, and more importantly, where we think they might go. Mm-hmm. Okay, because there's some cool things that I've noticed in the new system that I want to talk about later. So let me ask you this first. I'm going to go right for the gold.
Yep.
Favorite game of all time?
Yeah, that's a really difficult question. So I would have to say all time ever, the first one that really hooked me and made me, I have a few here.
Okay, okay.
A couple.
Give me your first.
I have a couple. So Zelda, the original Zelda.
Oh, the Nintendo system game,
yeah.
Zelda.
That
okay.
game, I think, was the first time ever that I was immersed into a game.
Really?
Before that, it was just like, Like
Now, this is before we had no
Brothers.
saving cards. There was
Exactly.
it was just, you had to play as long as you could to try to beat it.
You could save.
On Nintendo?
I think so.
No, brother, you
Couldn't
could not save on
I'm
Nintendo.
pretty sure you could.
No, man. No.
Okay. So I thought you could. I don't remember. It was so long ago. All I remember it was the first time I ever got stumped in a game, and they actually had a hotline you could call.
Yes. Yes, I remember that.
And it was the whistle that would open. You had to take the whistle and do something. You had to go up to a certain shrubs, and you had to blow the whistle, and the shrubs would lift, and you could go into a secret door.
Nice.
And so I was just like blown away. That's the first time I've ever been immersed into a game.
Now that was like I don't have the dates here, but that was Nintendo came out like in late 80s, early 90s, right? Or was it mid 80s?
Late 80s.
Late 80s. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I never got into Zelda myself.
Yeah.
Now I have it on my list because it's actually I don't.
Yeah, I highly recommend you play that original game, man. It changed
know.
the world. It really did.
It opened up a whole new world, just like Super Mario Brothers did, I think,
Yep.
in that way, because he had Mario Brothers and he had Super Mario Brothers, and you kept going with that.
Right.
But I never got into Zelda. But so that's your favorite game.
There's that. Also,
Also there's number two.
more modern.
Okay.
This is the Metal Gear Solid franchise is my all-time favorite.
But the best one of that bunch, you could just give one for that answer.
No, I have to say the whole thing, man.
Really?
Yeah, the original was like it just I don't know. They got
Number
better and better.
Number two,
Can I
Metal
say a
Gear
whole
Solid 2 was the ultimate game.
Yeah, that was a pretty good game. They're all great though.
They were
it's
all
a story.
good,
You have to look
but-
at the whole thing. That's
Right.
the thing. It's a giant long,
Sure.
drawn-out story, right?
Yeah.
And it's chaotic. It's insane. I still don't get it all.
Well, no,
I
you're
don't
not
think
supposed to.
anybody does. I mean, there's YouTube videos on it, right? You
I try to explain like what's going on. And you're like, how these connect?
They lose you halfway through it,
Right,
And it
right.
goes on. It's like a 4-hour video.
That's insane. So, but that's the thing but that's what's kind of cool. We'll talk about this a little later.
I honestly don't know which ones. Like the very last one, I thought was brilliant. I thought that was like where
Was that the Phantom Pain?
Yes.
Okay,
think
I rented
that's
that one.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's
start
like
off in a Jeep?
You knock somebody out and you tie a balloon to them and they go flying away.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah,
It's just it's such a wacky game. It's like such a great take on just so many different genres. And as far as creativity goes, they push the envelope. The director, who's super famous, I can't remember his name off the top of my head.
Hideo Konami.
Yes, there you go. So yeah, like
think.
I'm a gamer.
No,
I'm
that's not right.
I'm not a nerd gamer though. You know what I mean? It's like I have my ringer on my phone is actually
it's the Codex.
It's the Codex.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Y'all know that, right? Bloop bloop. Do it.
Call me.
You want me to call you?
Oh, it's not going to do it on this one. No.
No, dude.
It's
It's
not gonna
bloop bloop bloop.
Yeah. It's like
It's at that little noise. Yeah, exactly. That's it. I couldn't do it. I'll edit that in later.
and I actually was working. Yes, work it in right now. Okay, cool. So the cool thing about that though, and it really kind of opened my eyes to just like how like not really like I'm a gamer, right? But I'm not to this level that so many people reach.
Right.
I was working somewhere and my phone went off and some giant nerd runs over and he's like, "Hey, you like Metal Gear Solid? Oh my God." And he's just like going on and on. And it's like, "I've got the same codex on my phone." I was like, "Oh my God."
What'd you call me?
At first I was like, cool. And then after like a minute of him going on and on about what I thought about the intricacies of whatever this and that, I was just
Right.
like, dude.
Yeah, you
like,
got it.
Seriously.
That's enough.
You know, go sit back down.
It's like a Star Wars fan. Once they know you're a Star Wars fan, like, oh hey, what'd you think about this?
Right. I'm sure. I mean, yeah.
I always got to work it back in, right? It's always got to come back to that.
Yeah,
But no,
yeah.
I'm right. That's a good call, by the way, for your favorite, one of your favorite games.
I love it. Yes.
We'll talk about the Metal Gear
Okay.
Solid
And
series
there's a
in little
lot
bit
more
here.
too, obviously.
Yeah.
And there's so many games that I play that I'm like, while I'm playing it, I'm just like, that's the greatest game ever.
Right,
I
right.
love this game.
Well, they advance, man. They're cool. But I love the Metal Gear Solid games.
Can I give like my
give
quick
me one
list
more.
of my other
Oh, you have more.
others?
You have more of
Okay.
your
And I'm not going
favorites.
to get into I'm not going to
Okay.
elaborate because I know we want to save some time here. And you have them on here actually. So Uncharted blew my mind.
The first one especially, man.
Oh,
The first three
God.
of them are awesome.
They're just the
Yeah.
whole, and there's the new one that I haven't even played yet, which
Okay.
is it's a smaller version. It's not.
It's with the
really-
two girls on the front.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. It's like it doesn't have Drake
it's a
on it. And I'm
side
like,
story.
what's not?
It's the daughter when she's older.
It's like having Indiana Jones without Indiana Jones.
Yeah, it's weird. It's like not like a full game. It's like
Right.
$30. It's like I haven't gotten into it yet. 'Cause
Okay,
I know it's gonna just
okay.
suck me right in. And I'm still finishing a game right now. Last of Us. Oh my God.
Oh my dear God.
One of my all-time favorite games, and
It
I mean,
is.
that's like right
When's that
up
coming
there.
up to be a movie?
That's.
Jesus.
I mean, I would say overall, I like that one better than all. Like, it's like my all-time favorite game. But
Okay.
I mean, Metal Gear Solid, I think changed so many things too. So
Yeah.
if I had to like pick like the greatest game ever, I think that's like for me
Interesting.
one of
Okay.
And then
I like that game. It's a fantastic game.
Red Dead Redemption, of course. I mean, these are all ones I want to talk about more.
Yeah, let's talk about So you gave me
Witcher
like 4
was
or 5.
great. Yeah,
Okay,
so-
okay. Let's leave it at
Okay.
that.
Yep,
Okay.
okay.
Favorite console.
I would have to say my favorite console ever. Is that what we're talking about?
We're talking ever. What's the first one? Because I have several that fall in different categories of favorites.
Yeah.
So what's your first one that comes to mind?
I mean, Sega Genesis was definitely
Oh.
a big one for me.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was a big deal. That was when I went away to college. It's like we played, like I saw Sonic for the first time. Sonic
Okay.
blew my mind away. Played that thing for hours.
Nice.
And then there was like, Sega Hockey, which was just
Okay.
like just the most addictive game ever. I played
Right.
that forever. Where you hit
Isn't
the ice
that
and
what
your brain would, like,
Brody's playing in Mallrats?
Yep.
You ever seen Mallrats? That's what he's
exactly
playing,
what I was
right?
just gonna say.
Right, yeah.
That's the one where when your head hits it's the only one ever. When you
Yeah.
beat somebody up or
The
hit
blood-
somebody
blood
so
comes out.
hard, they
Right.
start squirming
Right,
on the
right,
ice.
right,
And then the blood squirts out.
Yeah.
It starts like pooling
Yeah, it
out
just
of
starts to grow.
Yeah. And it's
awesome.
such bad graphics. It's great.
But
It's
it is what it
blood.
is, man. It's 16-bit.
It's,
I mean,
it's pixelated blood.
wait, I think wasn't that 32 at that point, or is that still 16? I think it was 16 because Nintendo was 8,
Yes.
8-bit,
There was Nintendo 64.
and then the Genesis came out with the next one up, and then the PlayStation is one took it to the 32, right? I think PlayStation was 32-bit.
I honestly don't know.
I think
So,
I did research on this, but I didn't write that shit down.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, like those are the details that I don't really give a
So,
shit about.
but
It's
Sega
like,
is the
game's
one,
good.
right?
Yeah,
Sega's
so
the
I
one.
would say Sega Genesis and then PlayStation, of course.
Number one.
I would say
Number two,
the
number
original
three.
PlayStation. It changed everything, man. The first time my friend, I can say people's names, right? My friend TJ,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say his last name. He shows up
Coming for you,
at
TJ.
my house and he's like, I got this new gaming system. It's called PlayStation. I'm like, okay, dude, wow, this is bring it over. Okay, cool, whatever. We put it on. We played like the fighting game that comes with it, like right away.
With
And
the PlayStation,
Tekken? Was
it would have been Tekken. Yeah.
And I'm just like, and it's a CD, right? It's like,
Yeah.
wow, there's or DVD.
Yeah, right.
Was it DVD?
Well, I mean, what
Was
would
it
you call that?
CD?
It's.
But was it a DVD or is it? I mean, it had to be DVD format.
It
had to have been. There's no way
It came
would
out
fit on a CD.
before DVDs
I don't
became a thing, though.
Yeah, I think it was the first. Yeah.
It came out because I remember like when that came out, that was like in the later '90s
Yep.
when DVDs came out, right?
Right.
So you had the PlayStation games were that first disc, right? And that was cool because we had the Nintendo, we had to blow in the cartridge, right, when it wouldn't work,
Yep.
right? And then you could do the same thing with the Genesis because it was the same kind of cartridge thing.
Yep.
But the PlayStation had that disc, and for me, I have that same feeling about Genesis as you or about the PlayStation as you do for the Genesis.
Yeah.
It's my college system.
Yep.
And introduced me to games like Tomb Raider, Resident Evil,
Right.
and Madden. Well, Madden I already played, but bigger.
Back at you.
So
What's
yeah.
your favorite?
Okay, I was gonna go with one, but since you did three, I'm gonna do more than one. Okay, so one of my all-time favorite games. I'll start with my first one was Tomb Raider.
Yeah.
Because Tomb Raider, it was like Indiana Jones getting to play. I don't care that she was a girl with big boobs and a
you
big
just
butt.
like looked into her ass. The
Yeah,
whole time,
that
man.
digitized ass. Yeah, it was the fact that you got to explore and you had to you could find different things out while you were playing the game. I thought that was so cool. SSX Tricky.
Oh, I love that game.
One of my
I forgot
all-time
about that game.
favorites.
Oh my god, I love that
Right?
game.
So I had a friend. I still have a friend. His name's Rob. Rob Erickson. You listening? Yeah, he is. He'd be a good one to have on this podcast because he's a gamer. Like you talk about a guy who is a gamer, right? Like that's what they do. When they do it, they stay there and they're gonna finish what they're gonna do. That's him, right? So we used to get together and have like these weekends of gaming. We call them game club. And we would just get together, it's him and I, and we would plan the whole weekend around playing games, right? So I'd go to Ann Arbor or he'd come to my house. And it was just ridiculous. We'd shut off from the rest of the world and just play games for like 24 hours straight.
I think anybody that has an appreciation for games has had moments like that in their life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fun times.
I mean, not to interrupt you,
Yeah,
but I
no.
have one of my favorite all-time stories is when I first moved from Ypsilanti to Ann Arbor.
Yep.
When I was in school, I stayed in Ann Arbor for about a year and a half or whatever, and so it was winter break when I was moving there, and I was moving to a house that had about 15 people that lived in it. All
Okay.
of them were at home,
Right.
Because it was winter break.
Yeah.
There was two guys there, my friend Keith and his buddy
Keith.
Chuckrin, who I don't even know what this guy's up to.
Wait,
these
what was
days.
his name? Chuck what?
Chuckrin.
Chuckrin.
That was his nickname. I don't know.
That was his full name.
I don't
Chuckrin.
remember. I
Okay.
don't know. We called him Chuckrin.
Chuckrin.
Yeah. And so I show up. There's 2 weeks of us three in the house. I just moved in. And Keith walks in, and he's got a milk crate full of old Atari games. And he's got his old Atari system.
Nice.
And we're like, oh, wow. What are we going to do for the next 2 weeks?
Right? Exactly. This is what we're going to do. We're going to game.
We didn't leave the house for about a week and a half.
Oh, my God.
All we did was play every single Atari game ever made.
Nice.
Just day and night. That's all. I mean, it was the most amazing thing ever. And
That's
you know,
awesome.
And it's that's
Did
the
you
beauty
play
of it.
Atari when you were younger?
That was my first console. Yeah.
Okay. Because I didn't have the Atari.
And it was
I had the Odyssey.
Ironically, it was Keith's house.
Okay, good. Okay, yeah. There you
He
go.
was,
Ties together.
We were both best mans at each other's weddings, and we
Right.
both gave our speeches were tied to the Atari because we actually both hated each other when we met.
Oh.
And like I was throwing rocks at Keith when I first met him, and then I find out a couple days later that this new kid who
Wait a
who I'm
minute.
supposed
Wait a minute.
right.
Why are you throwing rocks at him?
So the kid that lived 2 doors down from Keith, Mikey Lempinen.
I remember Lempinen. I grew up on the same street as Jeff.
lived
This is
somewhere.
it's the same neighborhood.
Yeah. So I was hanging out with Lempinen because that's who I hung out with in those
Right.
days when I was little. And he's like, yeah, a new kid moved in. He's kind of a jerk. And I'm like, and they just pulled up right then. And there was a big pile of rocks because they were building a house next to his.
Right.
And so we just started taking rocks and throwing it at him. And he was like jumping around like he was like some kind of superhero. He was like, you can't hit me. And I never hit him. He was fast. He was like lightning, actually. I was like, damn, stand still, kid.
I'm gonna get this kid. I'm gonna get you now.
So I kept missing. And so I was like, whatever, man. And then a couple days later, I see him in school, and like friends of mine are talking to him. Like, don't talk to him. He's a jerk. I mean, I went by what Mikey Lempinen said, right? He's like 3 years younger than me or whatever. And yeah, so we're kids.
Yeah, that's what happens, man.
So then Steve, my brother, comes home one day. He's like, hey, I was just playing Atari. I was like, what? Atari? Who's got Atari? He's like, oh, the new kid, Keith.
Hey,
and I was like,
Keith.
oh, shit, I fucked up. I can say fuck, right?
Yep.
so yeah, I completely fucked up. And so I just kind of, Steve said he was going over there to hang out, play Atari the next day. And I was like, do you think I can go? He's like, I
don't know, maybe you
maybe.
threw rocks
I'm
at
like,
the
I
kid.
threw rocks at him and I told people that he's a jerk. He's like, no, he's a cool kid. I'm like, okay, he must be cool. He has Atari. So I showed up there, and now he's my best friend. So
Well, that's really it's funny. I have a story I want to tell you later on about video games and friends and how there's a bondship, there's a kinship with that, right? Lempinen was on the other facing of his backyard was facing Grissom, correct? Right?
Yes, I'm sorry, I was
And
drinking water.
same birthday as me. February 11th.
Really?
Yeah. It's Mike, right? Mike Lempinen?
Yeah.
Yeah, same birthday as me. He was a couple years older, your
Yep.
grade, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
No, he was a couple years younger than me.
A couple years younger. Okay, so yeah, maybe a year or two. Okay, so yeah, same birthday, which is coming up.
There
It's
you go.
interesting, right? How that all comes together. I'll tell you a story later about a friend in games, but I want to finish up with Tomb Raider Tricky is my favorite games, and I am also going to say I got to throw in. I just have to throw in Tecmo Bowl.
Oh God! Wow.
Right?
Okay.
And now mine are all old school games. Well, it's
No, no,
PS2
no.
and before. I have a lot of favorites that are now, but I'm going to throw those out there as my favorites, right? So since you said a friend story on that bond, let me and then wait, before you do that, favorite system. PlayStation is to me like Genesis where Sphere was a college thing.
Yeah.
As I analyze the games that I played on these systems that I really loved and how great those games were versus maybe the experience of them, because PlayStation 2 that we'll talk about didn't have a lot of ingenuity, but it had a lot of great successes to what they already came out. There's a lot of sequels.
Right.
I mean, almost every one of them is like a great sequel as opposed to something new.
No, PS2 was amazing.
Oh, it was amazing. So I almost want to put PS2 as my favorite because of that. But then I have Nintendo and PlayStation as that, that kinship of the first kind of gaming that you really played.
Yeah.
I didn't have the Atari. I had the Odyssey.
Yeah, we talked about this earlier. I don't even remember that.
Okay,
actually.
so
I thought I did.
Same time
I
frame,
don't. Yeah.
but instead of Pac-Man, it was Casey and the Munchkins.
Okay.
Okay, and it was just a fake system of Atari, right? I don't remember anything else. I remember I had a couple games, but I never played it very much, so I didn't really care about games that back then.
Right.
Did you play computer games?
So my first system ever that we actually had in our house growing up.
Okay,
We were poor as fuck, so we had the VIC-20.
The VIC-20. Okay.
Everyone else we knew had the Commodore 64. So
I had an Apple IIe.
Wow. Yeah, rich spoiled kid right there, man.
Only child.
Oh my God. Yeah. So yeah, our VIC-20 was it didn't come with games.
It didn't come with games.
You had to code the games in. So we had this big thick book, which was kind of amazing. We were doing code as kids. Me and my brother Steve would sit there and code games. And
That's
then you'd play the
insane.
game. And then you get to the very last game in the book, and it's Lunar Lander.
Okay.
And it's like
I remember that.
50 pages of code. And then you would like go to play the game, and there would be bugs, and so you'd have to debug the game.
No
It
kidding.
was crazy.
So it taught a generation how to hack or program.
Yeah, you learn how to change colors of the
Yeah.
background. You
No
could see-
shit.
yeah, hex colors were in there. Like all these like amazing.
This was for
pieces
what
of-
system?
This was VIC-20.
The VIC-20, which
Yes.
is when? Like, where does this fall
was-
in the RAM after
So Commodore
Atari?
64, which was 64-bit, came out, and that's when you had like the floppy drives and the printer, and like it was like a full-on computer, right? Whereas the VIC-20 you attached to your TV, it was also Commodore. It was the Commodore VIC-20, but it didn't have any of the additional, the
Oh, I'm not familiar with that at all.
really,
Yeah,
yeah,
not
look
at
it
all.
up. It's kind of amazing.
Interesting.
It was kind of useless, except for
It was
these
kind of,
games.
but no, but didn't it teach? Well, you didn't
It-
take that. I mean, did you take that anywhere?
Well, I mean, yeah, I coding websites and
Hacking
things like
shit?
that, which I've
Okay,
done over the years.
okay.
And,
So maybe that did give you an
It
influence.
gave me an idea of what
Yeah.
coding is about as a
Okay.
kid.
That's
No
interesting.
adults were in the room when we were doing this, right? If anybody knew anything about this stuff, we might
Right.
have gone on to be,
Sure.
I might have invented Facebook way before, whatever
Right.
his face is that did it.
Zuckerberg.
I don't know who that guy is. Anyways, so
Okay. Okay. Okay.
what
So,
you're talking about.
so with Atari, you got some classic games. I mean, you know the games: the Centipede, Asteroids, Donkey Kong, all those games. Then you had E.T. come out, and you had this lull of video games.
Yep.
So
Keith had ET, of
he had an E.T. game.
had
I had
E.T..
okay. So I had neighbors, the Kosanogs. Do you remember the Kosanogs?
course.
Okay, Mike and Christine.
So we grew up in the same neighborhood.
Same neighborhood.
And
Right. Same neighborhood.
Can we talk about that we're family?
We are, yeah.
We are family.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Jason is my brother-in-law.
Yeah.
So we are brothers.
So there's
and
that.
By the way, happy birthday, brother.
Oh, well, thank you, sir. I appreciate
Yes,
that. Here,
yes.
we're
Cheers.
having a couple beers up here. Oh, by the way, we are at Steve's Next Wave studio today, so I appreciate that, Steve. Thank you very much for having us over today. And here's you, Jeff.
Cheers.
All right.
Happy birthday.
Thank
I
you,
would
sir.
sing, but then the ladies would be calling me too much.
Don't sing.
Okay.
Don't sing. Okay, so what were we saying? So E.T. So I had Kosanogs lived behind me. They were
Can
really
I give
good
you a
friends
quick
of ours.
interesting fact about ET?
Yeah.
Guess who the designer was on ET? Don't know his name, but I know the
then
game.
If you don't know, I don't know.
His first game was Yar's Revenge,
Yar's Revenge.
which is I think the all-time greatest game on Atari. Yar's
that
Revenge
right?
was
Yar's
amazing.
Revenge. I love
Your little
that.
flying bug, you eat the force field, and then like the laser tries to
They
kill
play
you.
about that. They talk about that on that one game about that show about E.T. and how the game.
Yeah.
They talk about that game.
Yeah,
it's
'cause
cool.
That was his first game.
Really?
He was this like star programmer there.
And he's the one that did
And,
E.T.
and then they threw ET at him, and you got to watch the documentary. It's
Yeah,
kind
you
of amazing.
absolutely have. Yeah, so
he had
it-
like 3 months or 3 weeks to.
It was ridiculous.
It was so short. Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you don't know what we're talking about, Atari made a game called E.T. when E.T. came out, and you need to watch the documentary about what happened with the production of this and development of this game, and then where the game ended up in a bunch of like unmarked graves that they're still trying to find, right? So it's like the Hoffa of video games. It's crazy. So
They found it.
and they did find it. That's
did
right.
find
They
it,
did find
yes.
it. So, but you need to watch it because you're right. They gave him like very little time,
Yeah.
and it was like a rush job. And then they blamed it all like, oh, you guys made a shitty game. It's like, well, you
Yeah.
didn't give us a chance to make a game. I mean, this is bullshit, and it killed the consoles. It killed video games.
Well, I mean,
almost.
so a lot of people, I think they talk about this and that too. That game itself, they used to blame ET for the end of Atari.
Right.
Because they went bankrupt after that.
Yeah.
But it actually had nothing to do with it. It was just one shitty game that they made.
Okay.
They just happened to make it right when the company was doing really badly.
Oh,
They
so
were
they took the
They just
fall.
oversaturated. They
Yeah,
were throwing
yeah.
games out that sucked.
So they were using it as a scapegoat.
Activision came out and kind of sucked up a lot of their revenue.
Okay.
And Activision's like the number one, the largest gaming company in the world.
They're
right
still
now.
doing strong, yeah,
Activision
absolutely.
Blizzard, right?
Yeah.
So they're massive.
Yeah.
But yeah, Atari is like, yeah, that's what killed them.
That's what killed it. Now, if you look at the Blade Runner movie, the original
It
movie.
didn't kill them, but that's
Yeah, that's what they make it
that's
sound
when they
like. Yeah,
died.
that's when they died. There's a big Atari symbol in Blade Runner, right? Like in
Yes.
the logo,
Yep,
right?
yep.
It's really cool because everyone thought that was going to be the future of games.
Yep.
That was it, and then that started to die off, and then
By the way, what a great logo.
oh, it is a great
I mean,
logo
I'm a
with
designer,
the 3
right?
lines.
It's like one of my
Yeah.
all-time favorite.
Right, it's so simple.
Yes.
But it says so much.
Yeah.
It's so unique. I love it. So I had the Odyssey. Atari came out. Then Nintendo came out, and Nintendo came out, and that was my first like, ta-da moment, where I was like, oh, this is fucking the shit, man. I was playing.
Can I just back up one more time? I'm going to plug myself a little bit
Oh,
here.
plug it.
So my company's called the Vega Project,
Yep.
okay? And my original logo, which I still have to this day, the guy from the cover of Missile Command on the cartridge, I took the guy with the helmet. If you look at my old logos, he actually had the old helmet on. But even now, it's like you can see I have a guy that's like, it's a V with the guy's face on it. It's the original. It's like I've
Is that
morphed
right?
it. Yes.
No
So
shit.
That's
Okay.
how much of a gamer
Well, we're
I am.
going to be showing everybody that as they're watching it because I'm going to put that up on the too so they can see what we're
Sounds
talking
good.
about. Yeah.
We should show the whole. We should show the original because everyone.
We're going to do both.
What's with the
Exactly.
helmet,
We're going to do
dude?
both. Right. We're going to show them side by side. Now, I can't do that, but we're going to do the best we can. Okay, so that was from Missile Command.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the Vega Project did Missile Command, a nice riff off of that, right?
Yes.
What else happened in the Nintendo land that you saw that was revolutionary?
I mean,
Obviously, I mentioned Tecmo Bowl, which
yeah. I mean,
I mean,
Super Mario. I mean, that was that summer that game was out.
Super Mario.
I had a girlfriend. My friend, I think it was Keith, actually had a girlfriend that.
I didn't see your girlfriend was Keith.
No, that was short-lived.
That was short-lived.
I tried, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. But no, we spent this summer swimming in her pool and playing Super Mario Brothers. It was a great summer, actually. It was super fun, and we were all like, we all played it. It was the first time that girls were playing video games with us and actually were kicking our asses.
Right.
And I'm like, this is so cool, man.
It spoke to a lot of generations. Mario Brothers still going strong.
Yeah.
I mean, they had a cartoon. They had a movie.
Yeah.
That
What a
we'll talk
franchise.
I mean, seriously,
It's one
right?
of the longest. I mean, if I look at the list, it's like the oldest franchise on here.
Yeah, no, it has stuck. Now Castlevania still has stuck, but that's not Mario.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's the one that has stuck through. It still lasted throughout all the generations of video games.
Because they had a story. They
Yep.
had the princess. Did they have a princess?
Yeah.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah,
There's always the princess.
Princess Peaches, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know.
Whatever it is. My boys know it is. But you had a character that you knew, that Mario
Nintendo
character.
mastered the sound. They just had these cool little sounds that we didn't realize. They were like
the jump, or they hitting the coin,
when you hit the
or
coin, that little sound that you had when you hit the coin.
It's almost
a little dopamine.
That little
dopamine.
sound reminds me of the sound of the PlayStation 3 when you got one of those, what do they call them? Not medals, but trophies. When you get that little thing in the corner,
Right.
The sound, it gives me that same feeling. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me tell you a quick story about NES, because that was my first system. When I first came out, I got Double Dragon and Contra. And this first time, up, down, left, right, BA, select, start.
Oh my God, yeah.
Right, you had the code
remember those
for 100
days.
for 99 lives,
Yep.
right? And I played that with my buddy James, and
still know it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I up, down, left, right, BA, select, start. I'll know that
remember
forever.
kind of.
So I took that to my friend's house. The whole gaming system to play with. That was my first time. I was like, we're gonna play this anywhere. This is so cool.
Yeah.
So I broke my arm back in that time frame. This was 7th grade, and my buddy Mike Miller, I asked him to come over. Like I had my dad like call his dad. Say, have Mike come over because I'm like laid up and I'm all fucked up, and have Mike come over. So I had Mike come over, and we played Bases Loaded, and I played that motherfucker with one hand because I had a hand in the cast. So I played it with one hand, and I mastered how my pinky would use the directional pad, and how my first finger and ring finger were hitting the A/B button.
Oh, jeez.
And I was playing Bases Loaded because that's all it is. It's just a directional pad and
It's
two
that
buttons,
simple.
right?
Yep.
And it was just a real cool thing because Mike came over, we played games for the afternoon, kept me occupied while I was laid up, and it was just kind of cool. I mean, we had been friends for a long time before that, but it furthers that bond.
Right.
There's always that video games can always, like with me and Rob Erickson, there's that bond of video games where when we first met each other in college, it was Earthworm Jim.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep,
you know?
yep.
and, then
What a great game.
and then it branched off to a whole bunch
That's
of
such
other
a weird,
shit.
creepy game, man.
Exactly, right? Exactly.
An earthworm. I mean,
Earthworm
it's
Jim.
like they started the amount of creativity that comes into games, man. It's like it's unmatched.
It is.
It really.
It is.
It's just.
It can
to
go
this
anywhere.
day,
It can
yeah,
go anywhere.
yeah.
Just like with comic books. We did a podcast last week with Bob about comic books, and they can go anywhere because you can do the same thing with
What a great genre.
right.
It
It's
is,
just,
it is.
but video games are so cool, man. So I mean, that kind of covers Nintendo. You had the blowing on the tape. There's no saving. You had the codes.
Mm-hmm.
And then you mentioned Genesis earlier, so we don't have to talk a lot about Genesis, but I think it was that step up,
Yeah.
that jump up in graphics, obviously. And while it introduced me to Madden and Sonic the Hedgehog, and there was some really cool things like like Earthworm Jim, what have you.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple of things that really stand out for me. Is it gave me the first time where I felt like it felt movie-esque.
Yes.
And a couple examples of that is Strider. when we were playing Strider, it was this really cool thing where the music, the scene, it all felt very cinematic.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember watching certain scenes, I was like, this is so cool. And there was also no saving yet.
Right.
It was so you played it as long as you could, and then you had to do it again. So you saw that same scene in the beginning over and over and over again, right? But the one that really blew my fucking pants off was Flashback. Do you know this game?
No.
Okay, Flashback
Maybe.
was one of the first that I ever saw that was literally like you playing in a movie. Like it was like watching it was like a game now, like with Uncharted and any game now, right? They're all movie-esque. It was that back in Sega. And it was so awesome. You
Wow.
have to check it out. I'm going to show clips of it, or at least pictures of it while we're talking here, so you'll see what I'm talking about. But it was so cool because I was like, this is not just a game. This is a movie, and movies were my thing. Obviously, here we are.
I think after this show, I'm gonna go on eBay and buy an old Sega Genesis, dude, and just like load up on the games. Why not, right? I mean, can you get them for cheap now?
Probably, but you can actually buy they have all like the Nintendo and the Atari retro things.
Yeah.
You can buy that, but you're not going to get Flashback, and you're not going to get Another World. Another movie that was very cinematic.
The actual console.
You get a console that has like games built in. You don't get the tapes.
No, I'm saying what you need to do is
Yes.
get the actual console
Yes.
so you can get the actual. Yeah,
You need to go back, yeah.
I've done the preloaded Atari. I've done the preloaded NES, and they have like one or two really good games.
Right.
And a bunch of shit.
Right.
And so, and by the way, that week that we spent in Ann Arbor playing Atari games, guess what the greatest Atari game of all time was?
Oh, wait.
Because we voted on all.
Well, you
of
said
them.
Yar's Revenge earlier, so it's not
This
that.
is one of my right. So,
Okay, so
and we played them all 1,000 times.
I don't have a deep knowledge of Atari, so I really can't. I can't even guess other than saying something unique like, and I'm drawing blanks on everything. I don't know, man. What?
Roundup.
I don't know Roundup.
Roundup. You're a cowboy.
Okay.
Chasing after cows, and you're lassoing them, and they disappear when you pull them towards you. And
Okay.
you just kind of move up and down
Right.
the screen, and there's
I got
these
'em.
cows, and it's kind of like Bartender. Remember Bartender?
I
Or
remember Bartender.
Tapper.
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 Yeah.
I love Tapper. That's awesome.
So it was like as fast as you can go up and down,
Tapper.
and yeah. So that wasn't a console game, by the way. Tapper was a actual video game.
Are you sure?
Yes.
It was an arcade game?
Yes. Tapper might have been on Atari.
I think they probably made it. They
ColecoVision.
had to.
You don't have ColecoVision on
I
here.
don't because where did that come into play? Was it after
Or
Atari?
in television.
I don't know of that.
They came out after Atari.
They came out. Okay, so I wasn't into Atari. I had that little Odyssey thing, which wasn't my thing. So this is not a total history. This is my history.
So this is let me. We grew up in the same neighborhood. Do you remember Hussein Mubarak?
Hussein Mubarak. No.
He had Intellivision.
Yeah, television. Okay. No, I don't. That's why I don't know it.
Keith upgraded to ColecoVision.
Okay.
ColecoVision was a step up from Atari.
I remember people.
Intellivision
I
was
remember
a step
people who
up.
had them.
Yeah.
But I never played them. It wasn't.
were odd.
Video games weren't my thing yet.
Right.
It wasn't until Nintendo.
Coleco
That's where
was
it got
great
me.
because they had one of the very first movie transferred into a video game that I've ever played, which was Rocky.
Really?
Yes.
So you can see the movie, not a 8-bit.
Oh no, it was 8-bit.
Oh, was it?
But you're Rocky.
Oh,
And it
okay.
sucked, but we played because it was Rocky.
Yeah,
And you could
yeah.
be Rocky, man. Like
Right.
that was the first time ever you could be a character in a movie.
That's cool.
ColecoVision, man.
That is very cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't know how long that console lasted, but we love that.
Yeah,
thing, man.
I remember. I thought it was before for some reason. I remember people having it. Like I remember going over a friend's house or neighbor's house or family friends' houses for holidays.
Yeah.
And people had those games, but it just they had Pong and it was all these games. But I never really was into those games yet. It was like I said, I wasn't into it until Nintendo came out.
Yeah.
And that's when it fucking hit me.
But by the way, you noticed that I didn't have any consoles at this time.
Right. Yeah.
It was like, I knew what friends had consoles.
Right. What was the first one you owned?
That I owned
Yeah.
was NES.
NES.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it was our family console.
Okay.
Yeah,
So you had the NES. Okay.
yes.
So that was like I think that was a staple.
Right.
Everyone had the
And that was later. We were older, and
Yeah.
we threw a big giant party at my house, and somebody stole all of our friggin' video games. We're still gonna find you, man. You're going down. Yeah. Party's over. I'm like, oh, the house didn't get destroyed. I mean, we were older, right? We're throwing parties.
Right.
There was no alcohol. Officer
Oh.
Jameson.
Officer Jameson. Officer Jameson.
But
Nice.
our video games were gone.
Officer Bush.
Including Zelda. I was destroyed.
That had to break your heart.
Yeah.
That had to break your heart.
There had to be a save mechanism, by the way. Please look this up and edit this in, because there had to be. There's no way you played that game and then had to start from scratch.
I don't recall.
I think they
I
had
don't
some
recall
chip you
anything
could put in
until
there.
PlayStation that had something that you could save on. I don't. That's from my memory.
I think Zelda may have been the very first game where you.
But
could
where would you
save.
put it at on the Nintendo?
I think it was one of the little where your
Controller
would
goes?
go. Yeah, there was like a chip that would go in there.
Maybe
I'm pretty sure.
maybe
Yes.
you're right.
I
Maybe
think
you're
I'm
right.
Yep.
Let's-
It's all coming back to me now.
Okay, well,
I'm not
okay.
that. Okay, I guess I'm that.
Yeah,
old.
you are, but and I'm not that far behind. Okay,
And
so
I have not smoked any pot to this point, by the way.
oh, you're missing out. Okay, so okay, so
Actually, all my brain cells.
okay, so the Sega Genesis. What else is there to talk about? Mortal Kombat was introduced.
So, I mean, can I just talk about Sega really quick?
Yeah.
So, when I got to college and my roommate, Jake Avis, shows up, he's like from Seattle. He's like West Coast guy. He's like
Okay.
super cool. And,
What's he doing in Michigan?
He's listening to like, this is in Eastern Michigan, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And so, he's listening to like grunge music when I'm still listening to like Guns N' Roses, right?
Right.
And so he's got like Smashing Pumpkins, this and that, and Sega Genesis.
Oh,
Ooh,
what's this?
What's this?
Yeah,
First game he puts in, Sonic the Hedgehog.
of course.
My God, what a great what a great promo of
Right.
of how fast that system was.
Yeah,
You had this hedgehog then that was the
Yeah.
concept, right?
Yes.
Make something
Faster.
fast.
Right.
Like take something that we're all familiar with
like Mario.
and make it fast as
Exactly. It was like
fuck,
another
right?
character like
Yes,
Mario, very,
exactly.
very distinguished, very, very particular.
Yep.
And you made him super fast.
And you're getting rings instead of which you're going in circles with him anyways.
Yeah.
And there's rings. It's just like the whole thing
yeah.
was so perfect.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
And man, hours and hours and
Yep.
hours. Like from
Yep.
the second I picked that thing up. And
Yeah,
all of
yeah.
us were fighting over it all the time.
It was a fun game.
And such a fun game.
Yeah, that's
So,
why it's the first thing I wrote there was
yeah,
Sonic.
yeah.
It's the first
So,
thing.
That's the thing though about Sega Genesis though. It's like that game changed so much, and then Mortal Kombat, of course, with like the
Fighting game,
right?
absolutely, yep. But Mortal Kombat started with the
So
arcade.
you're missing a bunch of games,
Oh, sure.
I think, man. I'm just trying to remember. I mean,
Oh, yeah. These are the
EA
games that I
Hockey
remember.
Like Sega Hockey was. We called it Sega Hockey. We didn't even call it EA Hockey.
I remember Blades of Glory, but was that Nintendo?
I don't remember. I never played
Blades
that.
of Glory was, I think, a Nintendo game. Yes, it was a Nintendo.
The only hockey game I've ever played
Was Sega Hockey.
was Sega Hockey.
Okay, I don't remember. I wasn't a hockey fan, but I
now
did
it's on
play. I did play
PlayStation,
Blades
so
of Glory.
You can't call it Sega Hockey anymore, but it's the same franchise,
Right.
So, and that was a game which I loved growing up in Detroit. Right, it's like here's a game about that. It's a hockey game that
Right.
everybody's playing. Like people in California are playing this game.
Right.
Right. It's like my friend who's from Seattle is playing this game. Did they have a hockey team? Who knows? Right.
Nope.
They have basketball, right? I
Yep.
think I heard.
And
I don't
football.
know. Oh, they have, right.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyways, the point is that everybody was playing this game and it was hockey based,
Right.
And it was super fun. It was
Yeah.
addictive as hell, and that for me was why. I mean, I would just for hours play this. It was very much my Tecmo Bowl, right?
Ah, yeah.
Which I
Yeah.
wasn't into Tecmo Bowl till many years
Oh,
later.
Yeah.
I moved into a house, bunch of guys. They had a place. They had an old what was that? NES?
Nintendo. Yeah. NES.
They had an old NES upstairs with Tecmo Bowl and nothing else.
And
on
that's
it.
all you need, man.
We ended up having leagues. We're like doing it was just the most amazing thing, man.
Yep.
It blew me away, dude.
Yeah,
It was like
I used to
'cause it was
take my
so
own
simple.
stats.
It
I
was
would
so
take my own.
simple.
I would play
Yeah.
the 49ers, and I would play a 16-game season,
Yeah.
and I would keep track of the stats of all the players. I'm like an idiot.
Wow.
I mean,
Yeah.
because that's before you had any of that. You didn't
Yeah.
get stats at the end of the
And
game.
it's back when you had lots of time.
Yes, I was a fucking
You had more
child.
time to do.
Right. I was like, I'm going to do
these-
this.
Right.
But yeah, man, Madden or Tecmo Bowl, the same thing is I didn't play Sega Hockey because I wasn't a hockey fan. But it's the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
it's like you
exactly.
just get addicted to it.
Yeah,
You just
and then
can't
once they
stop
added
playing.
leagues, you get your teams.
Yep.
I mean, it just grew and grew and grew.
Right,
It was
right.
the most amazing thing.
Right.
I haven't played it in a while, actually, to be honest. But
I stopped playing football games
dabbling.
altogether, but I
Yeah.
used to love Madden, and Madden was introduced into Sega.
yep.
And I remember Madden being the first time it was non-NFL, right? So you had your San Francisco team, you had all the teams, but they weren't this like their skill levels were like you had the Jerry Rices and the Joe Montanas and Barry Sanders as far as like the skill levels, but they weren't the same numbers,
Right.
And they were the same name. They didn't have names; they just had numbers.
I don't remember.
So it was
this,
like it was
'cause they
like
didn't have contracts
it would
yet.
be like, yeah, exactly, right. So
Yeah.
I forgot if they had like if Jerry Rice was number 80. I don't think he was. I think he was a different number. But by the stats, you're like, well, that's Jerry, and this is this guy, and that's this guy, and you knew who was
I
who.
remember this, man.
Right.
Wow,
Yeah.
it's
And then,
such a
then I
trip.
think the second year they came out with it, or maybe the third year, is when they had the contracts with the players, where all of a sudden the players had their names on the game and the numbers in the game, and maybe it wasn't even named yet. Maybe it was just numbers.
Yeah.
Like I know there was a stage of a progression where they went from embodying the character, the athlete, to having his number, to having his name and number.
Yes, there was a transitional
Yeah,
period.
right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but that was so cool because you were like, these are the players. Like this is Barry Sanders, but you knew
He's
that
He was the fastest one.
you knew
out
the guy
there.
who had 99 agility. That's Barry.
Exactly. Right. And he's on the
On the
Lions.
Detroit team, right? Exactly. But I remember
and the rest of the team sucks.
Exactly, right, exactly. And you had one. Yeah, it was always it was so cool. Altered Beast was like probably their perennial like
Never played
intro.
that
That,
one.
was a game that came out with the system. Eco the Dolphin was a game that I remember very fondly because it was super cool because you got to swim around underwater with like a
I vaguely
dolphin.
remember that, but yes.
It was pretty cool, and it was just a cool game. But that, I mean, I know there's a lot that I'm missing here. I threw together the names that when I looked at a list, I was like, "Yep, I remember those games. These
Yeah.
are the games that I remember. Games I don't remember, I didn't write down because I have nothing to say about them."
Right.
But Earthworm Jim, I remember because this was my last year of like my first year in college was the Sega Genesis, and that's when I met Rob. It was my second year there actually. So I had this during my second year, and Rob would come over. He lived down the hall, and we would play Earthworm Jim, and we would just like go crazy on it. And it was the first time where we would just go in depth on a game and
Yeah.
play the shit out of it. Right? Do you remember Bionic Commando?
Kind of. And I'm trying to remember. There was a military game with the helicopter.
Oh,
And it was sprite based, but it looked 3-dimensional. And so you would go in and like just kind of blow up little villages and shit and like rescue people. That was on Genesis. That was one of the last games they had. It was pretty amazing.
so I remember a lot of those games, but I remember on the piece or like on the Apple IIe that I had,
yeah.
there were some games that were like just war centric
Yeah.
that you would be bombing, and I remember they were very poorly looking, but
Uh-huh.
but I remember that, man, where you would like just be bombing villages and
Yeah. I mean, that's so the Genesis was the first time I think that you felt like you actually had, a game from the arcade in your house,
Right.
on your TV.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, before like Atari was no match for
No.
going to the arcade.
no.
It was at home. It was cool.
Right.
But it was still Atari, right?
But
Like,
the arcade's the
graphics-
arcade.
Like the Missile Command version of Atari sucked.
Right.
The Pac-Man version on Atari, like he didn't even turn left and right. He was always facing
Going the
right.
same way, right?
It's like, and so we always joke. He's eating the dots with his ass. It's like, what is he? It's not, yeah. And it had a weird noise. Remember, it was like it was a really weird.
I don't remember the noise.
It was like a, like a bad like Chinese ripoff of Pac-Man, right? It was
Okay,
like-
right.
It was.
I don't remember that, but I remember it looking
so bad.
different. But yeah, you're right. So they
And you start playing, you're
Yeah.
like, this ain't Pac-Man.
It's not the same, man. But you're right. So Sega gave you like that first time where you're like, these graphics look really good. You're playing like a real game. That's where I said like it started coming like a movie to me, where they're very cinematic.
Right.
I did not have the Next system, and I believe Sega came out before Super NES. I
Right.
did not have it. But just like the Atari, I played it quite a bit with friends, and there was a Super Star Wars series that I remember extremely fondly because it was like the first time you could play like a Star Wars game where you play the characters, not just like a
Right,
ship,
right.
and you get to play all the levels. And I was like, this is so cool. But I never played much of the Super Nintendo other than a couple Mario games where you got to introduce like
I
the
didn't
Yoshi.
either.
Yeah.
And it's funny because when I got to school,
Okay.
I got to college, we had Genesis already in our dorm room. Nintendo had tents set up everywhere on campus where you could come in and play it.
Really?
And it was like, we'd go play it. We're like, this ain't no Sonic, man. Like, this is not cool. This
Yeah.
is not, it was weird. And I just never got into it. It's the weirdest thing. I never got into Super NES.
Yeah, like I said, I
can't-
played it at a friend's house,
Uh-huh.
and that's about it.
Yeah. And I know people that love it. I just never got into it, man. And I think it was a generational thing at that point.
I think so. I was kind of getting away from it, but that changed really soon once the next system came out. But when, God, there was something else I want to say about Nintendo, the Super Nintendo. Maybe it was a certain game that just kind of popped in my head for a second there, and then it was gone. But I didn't have a fancy toy. Oh, it was Tecmo Bowl. They had a Super Tecmo Bowl.
Right. Yes.
And it did what I was doing with the first one.
Yeah.
I was taking stats.
Right.
And it was keeping stats,
Yeah,
man. I was like, I'm doing that already.
Yeah, exactly. And it wasn't. I mean, it wasn't that groundbreaking. I don't know.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't.
I could be. I don't. It doesn't stand.
I
out for
remember
me.
not having to have it.
I mean, all I know is on Genesis, you have hockey players with blood gushing out of their heads, and then you have NES, which is the same old shit that you had from NES.
It felt
right?
like
It's the same
it felt like to me
characters,
it was
just
just like an
nicer
up. It was like
graphics.
just an upgrade, slightly upgrade.
And I'm in college now. I'm no longer
Right.
You know, a junior high school kid. So I'm like,
I think maybe
I've grown up.
that's where I had it. I think I had the Genesis for a while, and I liked the games more than I did what I saw on the Super Nintendo. I didn't feel like I needed to get the new one, and I've always had got the new one.
Right.
Ever since with the PlayStations, but I just did not need to get it. But that Super Star Wars stuff was super fucking cool, man. I remember having a lot of fun with that.
One thing we didn't touch on, which we talked about before, is that there was a major lull between consoles, though. Like when Atari, ColecoVision, and Television was out,
Right.
Atari went out of business. All three of them went out of business,
Right,
pretty
yeah,
much.
yes.
I don't know what happened to them. And there was no video games for a while.
It was a little.
They kind of went away, and
Right.
it became a thing of the past almost.
Yeah.
And I just remember being a kid and like just bummed. Like you had to go to the arcade again, but nobody really went. And it was like,
I was really young at that point, so I don't remember it being more of like it just kind of went away.
yeah.
But then once Nintendo came
Cable
out,
TV was coming out at the time.
Yep.
Might have been.
it's all the
part
same
of
time frame, right?
Yeah,
you had
yeah.
different things taking
And
your MTV was
Yep.
hot back then.
Yep.
So you had a lot of other things taking your attention away. So video
Exactly.
games, the fact that they disappeared for me didn't affect me because, I didn't really think about it because I had so many other things that were new.
Right.
Like you can go to Highland Appliance and get a video.
Highlands. 50 watts per channel, baby kicks.
50 watts per channel, baby cakes. And you could get I could go get Road Warrior on beta, right?
Wait,
From the video
Are you
store there.
sponsored by Highland Appliance?
Exactly.
Have they sent you a check yet?
50 watts per channel, baby cakes. They have not. They have not. It's a shame they went out of business.
Oh my god.
Yeah, man.
That's pretty good. So yeah, and then that's the thing. That's why NES was such a big deal, and I think
was.
so many people call that like the greatest game console ever.
Yeah.
Because it did save video games.
It did. It brought
home
it right back to the
consoles.
map. Yeah,
It did.
it put them right back on the map, and it rejuvenated the whole industry. And then obviously everyone started to up the game with the Sega Genesis, and then I guess maybe you could say Super Nintendo. And then where did the Dreamcast come into play? It was right around the same time as
God.
PlayStation, right?
I barely remember the Dreamcast.
I didn't have it, but I think it was after PlayStation. Yeah, it had to be.
Yeah.
It had to be because
think
it was
so.
well after college when I was over at my
I think
friend's
that
house.
was
They were
their
playing
answer
it.
to the
Yeah.
PlayStation.
Yeah.
And it kind of failed.
Yeah, I
And
never
yeah,
liked it.
PlayStation just changed the world.
It did,
Man.
it
It
did.
was like, I mean, that's the thing,
But before we get to the PlayStation, I'd like to just shift gears slightly.
Uh-huh.
So let's not, instead of keep going through this timeline and maybe going on a certain path here, let's stop right there for a second.
And let's take a quick break and come back for part 2 of video games on the J. Craig Podcast.